more despondent day by day. It's not just a black man thing, it's actually a Western and developed nation man thing. And we're watching the fallout of that. I want you to listen to this commentary, and then I'll come back in the back and tell you my commentary, or give you my commentary.
Okay, let's get to my monologue. Something bad right now is happening for American men. And before I start, let me say, I don't have any answers for you as to why, and I don't have anyone to blame. I don't even really know how deep the problem goes. But what I do know is that the crisis amongst men in America today is leading some really bad outcomes for our society, and it's beginning to show itself everywhere in American life. The first warning shot across the bow came from the Wall Street Journal earlier this month. Marshall and I actually discussed this the last time he was on the show, but it's worth repeating some of the core conclusions from that story. Quote, at the close of the 2021 academic year, women made up 59.5% of college students, an all-time high. Men, 40.5%, according to enrollment data from the National Student Clearinghouse. U.S. colleges and universities had 1.5 million fewer students compared with 5 years ago, and men accounted for 71% of that decline. Okay, that's stunning. If the trend holds within the next 5 years, 2/3 of all college degrees in the United States will be granted to women. The male drop-off in college holds across race, age, geography, and economic background. In other words, unlike many stories in America today, it's not class or race, it's gender. There's no one reason as to why men are choosing to forego college, but there is a consensus on one thing. This is really not good for society. Like it or not, a 4-year college degree is required for entry to the upper echelon of America. Think about how many jobs that have nothing to do with college still require a degree. And from there, that's just the entry point. Media, economics, politics, law, business, venture capital, almost all professional jobs today require a college degree. It's simply a bare minimum to even get a shot at competing. Now, not having half the population participating in that is going to lead to some real weird outcomes. But here's the thing. College numbers, it turns out, is just a bat signal for a much deeper problem. New data from Pew Research with pre-COVID data finds that men are now much more likely to be single than women. Now you might think, there's nothing wrong with that. Single days were fun after all. But on a societal-wide level, more single men has all sorts of downstream effects which are terrible. Listen to this, quote, single men are much more likely to be unemployed, financially fragile, to lack a college degree than those with a partner. They're likely to have lower median earnings. Single men earn less in 2019 than in 1990, even adjusting for inflation. You know what's even weirder? Single women are actually earning the exact same amount than they were 30 years ago. But those with partners are earning 50% more than previously. Something is uniquely happening amongst men that has made them not only more single, but actually making a lot less money. And it turns out that itself is a vicious feedback loop. People who are financially stable are much more likely to find and attract a partner. Look, it's not that people are gold diggers, they're not. It's that a societal signal that you're able to provide and have a certain type of seriousness is really important. 2017 Pew Research data found that 71% of US adults said that being able to support a family financially is very important for a man to be a good partner. Pretty much equal amongst men and women who said that. Only 25% in the other case, for both men and women, said the case was for a female partner. So like it or not, employment and earnings is pretty much tied to our dating and marriage market, if you were to say so, in America, which means that our economic conditions as a country determine one of the most important parts of our lives. Acknowledging that reality reveals a terrible reality for a lot of American men. The more and longer that you are a single male, the worse your economic, health, and marriage prospects become. The more likely you are to live with your parents and longer. And the more and longer it happens, the larger the trend amongst the male population is. And thus, the worse outcome for men on a society-wide level continues. Get this, 73% of men without a partner in 2019 were employed. 90% of those who were partnered were employed. 26% of unpartnered have attended college. 37% of partnered have attended college. The same gap exists amongst married Americans. A 4-year college degree right now is the best predictor of whether you're going to get married or not as a man. Pair that with what I opened this segment with. Are you beginning to see a problem? We have a society, particularly an elite, sets the tone for the entire nation, and it places an emphasis on college. Men are dropping out of college and are becoming more likely not even to try and go in the first place. This is going to widen the income gap. The less money that you make, the less likely you are to attract a partner. And so we go. All of this has massive cultural ramifications. Take a look at China's male imbalance and video game bans right now to see what happens when weird imbalances cause really strange social pathologies. But I think that the one thing that gives me hope is this. None of this is inevitable. It's not like China, where they literally banned having more children. Instead, all of this seems to be the result of economic conditions. And in fact, within the Pew data, there is evidence that when male wages begin to rise, partnership rises, which in turn spins the hamster wheel of all the benefits that comes with that in the right direction. Now, I told you I wouldn't give you any answers, but I can't resist just one, pointing you in this direction. In 2017, David Otter, over at Harvard University, he found that declining male wages as a result of departing manufacturing jobs led to increased unpartnered men, lower fertility rates, less rates of marriage, which in turn lead to worse health and income outcomes for almost everybody in our society. So if you want to live in a healthy, prosperous, stable country for years to come, solving this problem seems to be one of the key things that you can do. And the lucky thing is maybe we can do something about it. Problems of the soul are up in the air. A problem of jobs? Well, at least we can try and figure it out together. So,
Now that you've heard that, y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Because our society is changing supremely rapidly. And many men and many women aren't ready for that. They're not ready to have the conversation that the world that you were born in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s and even the 60s, it no longer exists. And the tropes and the ideas and the ideology you have of male female relations, intimate relationships, power dynamics may not exist the way you thought it did all of 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. All that old-timey wisdom that your grandparents imparted on you may not be able to be implemented the way you thought it was. Is it all the way gone? No, it's not. No, it is not. But especially in the black community, it's dissipated to nearly nothing. And this is what comes with modernity. This is what comes with women in the workforce and women in colleges. And we're not necessarily against women being in the workforce if they want to be, or necessarily against women being in post-secondary school or college and university getting their, master's degrees or doctorates. We're not against that. But it does come with some unintended consequences when women still want to marry and date up. What happens, ladies, when you are the up? And this is something that we really have to reconcile with. As I said in a previous video, we are going to have to rewrite the social contract. When you look at the numbers and you see that half of Americans make $31,000 a year or less, half of American men make $38,000 a year or less, there are it's a small portion, but there is a portion of women that outpace that drastically. There is a small portion of women that make 50, 60, 70, $75,000 a year. And if they're looking to date and marry up, but yet the men on those levels and higher date across the board, there's going to be a lot of women playing musical chairs with their dating, mating, and marriage prospects. Not only that, as Sagar said, what we're going to see in the next decade, if this trend continues, is that it's going to be 2-to-1 enrollment in these universities and colleges. And that's just enrollment. That's not even graduation. In graduation, it's even worse, right? Because men are more likely to drop out than women are. So if 2/3 are entering college, what is it going to be for graduation? 70-30, right? So we're going to have to either do something to pull the men up, which I don't know if we have the political and social will to do, because we're going to have to sideline women to a certain extent. And nobody really wants to have that conversation, especially not out loud, right? Nobody wants to have that debate in the town square of Western societies and developed societies. And now that we know that this is not just a black man thing, it's a Western thing. It's a developing nation thing, because this is happening all across the board in different countries around the West. Now, what do so many of you have to say that don't like to talk about environment? Right? So I'll pause right there. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Let's have the conversation. Mr. Z out.